Hello everyone, in today's video I'm gonna teach you how to play against opponent attack when he tries to mate your king, when he throws all the pawns at you, trying to deliver you the mate. What are basic rules when your opponent launches an attack, especially when your king is castled? If your king is not castled, of course try to send him to the long or short side. The main thing when your opponent tries to attack, push his pawns up to your king, you want to try to open up the center. Because if you open up the center, your opponent cannot really do anything, because who controls the center control the whole game. Also, one piece of advice can be not to push pawns in front of your king, because it kind of weakens your king, it creates hooks that your opponent can use. And we'll try to analyze one of my chess.com games. It was pretty quick, but very useful and educational. So let's get started. I played against National Master. Opening we are not really interested in a lot because it's like English opening. White is trying to fianchet to the bishop because right now this bishop isn't doing great. Uh, my opponent fights for the center, so I want to fight back. And after a few moves, my opponent created an isolated queen pawn, which can be a weakness in the future that I would love to attack. If you playing, try not to create pawn weaknesses in your position. Uh, Bishop d6 was played, so far so good. I mean, I'm planning to finish my development, then maybe retreat with the knight, having a threat of taking the pawn in the future, maybe take right here, and then create a backward pawn on c6 that I can try to capitalize on. But out of nowhere, my opponent plays h5. And if your opponent has the bishop on such diagonal and he plays h5, what does he want to do? He wants to mate you with the Greek gift sacrifice, which is bishop h2, king h2, and knight g4. And if you play a move like b3, for example, he can try to take on h2, and after king h2, play knight g4, and it's really risky. Of course, right here, it's not losing. King g3 is like very risky event because our king can be under fire in many ways. But if we play king g1, by the way, good piece of advice against Greek gift mating attack. If you manage to control h2 square, for example, like I do with this knight, then this attack doesn't work. But just to avoid any complications and seeing that my opponent is really an aggressive chess player, I decided to retreat with my knight to f3, open up the angle to the pawn on d5, and at the same time guard h2. But if, let's say, I don't know, black plays some random move, please don't take this pawn. I really beg you. Because after knight d5, knight d5, queen d5, there is a super famous pattern when your opponent can use a discovered attack, and you will lose your queen very quickly and the game probably with it. So I played knight s3, hoping to finish my development and baiting my opponent for future actions, because if he will commit more, I can try to use it in my favor. And he played g5, which move might seem nuts, but it has some point. Black wants to play g5, g4, h4, g3, and get to my king pretty quickly. Black doesn't really care about the king in the middle, so they wanna attack, attack, attack. Knight g5 looks dangerous because we can then be attacked by rook g8, and opening up files in front of your king is not the best thing. But right now we eventually have a 4, which I saw during the game. Right now our knight is reliably defended, this pawn is hanging, and we have a lot of pressure. So the main thing that we need to handle is, does our opponent have a Greek gift? And he does, because after king h2 there is a knight g4 check, and if you dare to take, then your king will not thank you because he will be in a very terrible spot. But I thought for a little bit and decided, okay, I'll play king g1. My opponent still needs to spend time for taking my knight. I'm 2 moves away from being mated by playing queen h4 and queen h2. And remember what I told you before, that when your opponent attacks you on the flank, when he wants to mate your king, you want to open up the center. And right here, it's the best opportunity. Plus, we already know that our opponent wants to deliver mate on h2. And we need to think who can help us to cover this square. There are basically two options. First one is the dark square bishop who would like to pop up and go to f4 to cover it, or maybe somehow the queen, because the queen is the most powerful piece and can help you both in the attack and the defense. So there is an option of playing e4, and after queen h4 we might play bishop f4, which Engine actually likes a lot, but I didn't really think about it a lot because, I don't know, this bishop look exposed, maybe it was good enough. I decided to play queen d5, because also, by the way, great advice, when your opponent is attacking you, trading queens would be great, because queen is the main weapon in the attack, and if you eliminate it, 50% of problems kind of disappear. My opponent, of course, doesn't wanna accept this trade because he wants to mate me and I'm up material, therefore any trade would be decent for me. And we can play queen d6, trying to cover h2 and claim that we're alright, and actually later maybe even mate our opponent. But the problem with queen d6 that our opponent is also not an idiot. He can figure out a move like knight e5, and it is called interference. The main idea is that right now queen h2 is a real threat, and it's very hard to reflect all the threats unless we play some bishop b5, but it's needed to be found. So I decided to play forced move first, which is the check, and then I went to f4, which first of all helps me to defend, secondly helps me to control squares on the queen side, and later I can try to mate my opponent. And at the same time, later, if I dare, I would love to play f3 and win the knight because we have a pin. My opponent, of course, doesn't want a castle short, so he goes long. Later, trying to organize an attack, use a g file maybe, use knights and stuff like that. And I understand, okay, I need to do something. My opponent's attack kinda uh, I mean, right now in process. So the best defense is an attack, and as I said before, we have a queen. Queen perfectly combines with the knight, and we have a mating threat right now. And for example, after some move like king d7, trying to run away, understanding the mistake, after queen d6, mate is inevitable, because after king e8, knight c7, that's it, king is cooked. So my opponent played knight e5, trying to block me from mating ideas. Taking knight a7 is interesting, but maybe it's not the right timing because, I don't know, house is burning. We don't want to sit and drink coffee, wait, we want to like save us and with a good stream of events mate our opponent. So I decided to play f3 because right now it will always irritate my opponent. He would always have to calculate whether I can take and then run away with my king somehow. And my opponent plays rook d5, trying to protect this knight just in case, attack my knight. And I saw a perfect opportunity. I can play e4, kicking away this rook, my bishop can develop, and my rook can start attacking the king, forcing my opponent to go to really vulnerable positions with his pieces. My opponent decided not to stop, and he sacrifices the rook in this position. Uh, I mean, I'm a simple man, of course I see the rook, I take it, and knight g6. Pretty sneaky move, trying to kick away my queen from this h2 b8 diagonal where queen can deliver me the mate. I have only one square left, and from the distance rook d8 really disturbed me, because right now if my queen goes away without a check, let's say, then I'm gonna be mated. And there is a queen c5 check, but I mean, if your balls are huge and you can calculate this, and not be afraid of future mating threats, then alright. And Tenjin is this sort of guy who says that it's alright. But I came up, in my opinion, with a more sophisticated idea. I here played bishop g5, and you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Why do you give up your bishop absolutely for free? But the point is that after my bishop went away, I released the square on c1, which is a perfect tactical trick sometimes. When there is one piece occupying an important square for another piece, you can throw it away. And after rook c1 it's mate, black can continue fighting for a couple more moves, but mate is unstoppable. And after rook d6, it looks like I lost a piece because my opponent picked up my bishop. But the knight was hanging. Remember, I attacked it, and here it comes. And after all of this blow-minding complications, what do we have as a leftover? I'm up an exchange, and queens are gone. My king is totally safe. It's just a matter of technique how to win. In such positions, you want to trade pieces and avoid any complications. So I'm placing my rook on the super active spot. If my opponent takes, I'm super happy. If he moves away, then he's already not happy because he's mated. And after rook d1, I decided to play b3 just to neutralize the bishop, and I don't want to lose the pawn on a2. And then it's time for the king. In the endgame, this piece is super useful and can give you a lot of value. And actually, the rest of the game is not interesting, but I'm gonna like show you how I realized it. Rook. I mean, you have an extra exchange, therefore you need to use strong sides of your rook, which is control over open files. I want to infiltrate, I want to buy these pawns from different sides, and yeah, that's what I was doing. But right here, my opponent played a5, kind of setting a trap. And actually, I kind of tempted to go into it, not realizing in what difficult spot I can end up. Because, let's say, we play some random move, like bishop d1, and here comes the mate, because my king has nowhere to go. Or, for example, I go into greedy beast mode, eating all his pawns, there is an knight g6 check, and this is again mate. And right here I realized, okay, I have too much material, extra pawns, it's time to get rid of the burden. I need to keep on floating to my victory. And right now, if let's say my opponent takes everything and even picks up a pawn, outside passed pawn will win the game because my opponent will have to be distracted. I will promote the queen, and unless I stalemate him, it's gonna be a victory. So my opponent decided not to take my bishop, realizing that it's over for him. And then, yeah, I just bet on my golden horse right here, which is a G pawn. It's almost unstoppable, and I managed to win on time, but position obviously winning. There is no even fortress if my opponent somewhere gives up a pawn, and that's how it works. So this is it. I hope you find this video useful. If so, please write down the comment, like the video, and especially subscribe. And see you in the next episode. Bye.